Welcome to the Sisters Uncensored podcast, where we get into everything from childhood trauma to millennial adulting and all things in between.
We share crazy stories from the past and present to help us cope with the insanity that is our lives.
By sharing our perspectives, we hope to bring some relatability, laughter, and unsolicited advice that can help you survive the messiness of life along with us.
My name's Jessica Labita. I'm a millennial mom, wife, and marketing professional, and I am absolutely insane.
My name is Ashley Leneve. I am a millennial stay-at-home mom, avid golfer, and too mouthy for my own good.
We are real sisters, and this is Sisters Uncensored. Take this trip with us.
All right, welcome everybody to Sisters Uncensored. Today we are going to talk about sex education and how it has really evolved quite a bit from when we were kids back in the 90s to early 2000s to the stuff that our kids are learning in school today. And it is a little bit crazy how much the curriculums have changed over the course of time. And I really want to get into it as a mom, and especially as a mom of teenage girl. And then your daughter is 5. There's a lot that's changed and a lot that I don't know if other parents are aware of. So I think this can be a very informal discussion about sex ed and how things have evolved.
So when we decided we were going to talk about this, we obviously researched the curriculums current day versus when we were kids and when, we were learning about sex ed. A lot of things came to my surprise.
Yes.
Especially being a mom for like a little kid,
Yep.
Like a 5-year-old. I was shocked at some of the things that I saw kind of come up.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff has evolved in a good way. There's been a lot of like positive change, and I think the more we're teaching the kids, the better. And I don't feel like we got enough information when we were younger.
I think it was more, it was much more conservative,
Right.
at the time. It was kind of like taboo to have to talk about.
Yeah. And I feel like the health teachers who were teaching it at the time were very uncomfortable.
I think they were uncomfortable. I think it was uncomfortable for the kids too. I'm not gonna lie, because I remember the high school, the teacher who taught us in high school. I meant to ask you this real quick sidebar. Do you remember any of our sex ed classes having a male teacher?
I think so. I think there were, because I think, it was like, for us, it was the gym teachers that also taught health. And so if you had male gym teachers we had a lot of them in middle school. They were the sex ed teachers in they taught health basically, which is where you got your sex ed.
I think one of the gym teachers in middle school, wasn't he like dismissed for like sexual harassment? He was coach.
Oh God, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Oh, I think that's a thing. I think so. Every time I talk to Chelsea, she always tells me like the dirt of what goes on from high school that I don't know about.
Yikes.
Anyway, it's neither here nor there. But I remember the teacher in high school who taught sex ed for us. And not only was it uncomfortable for her, I'm sure, but it was uncomfortable for us because, not to be an asshole, but this woman was frightening looking. Like she was terrifying. So to hear her talking about things like anal sex and how it's like, that's an exit only hole, like you never do, and things like that, and being like, oh,
I know.
Oh God, I'm watching this woman with her troll teeth. And I'm like, she looked like, oh my God. I only say trolls, but have you seen the Trolls movie, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
You know who
like
I'm talking
scary
about.
Looking.
What are they called?
They have like a special name. They're not actual trolls. They're like the Birkins. Yes, the bad guys.
The Birkins.
The bad trolls.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like really bad dental. That's what she looks like she stepped out of a movie. So that was uncomfortable. I mean, watching this woman put a condom on a banana and tell you about.
It's crazy that like you remember them actually doing that, because I have zero recollection of.
Oh no, I remember it.
It was those things happening.
It was traumatizing.
Like I felt like that was the movies where they taught you about like putting a condom on a banana. I don't remember ever experiencing that in real life.
They didn't hand out like condoms for everybody to put on a banana. She put a condom on a banana
to demonstrate.
Okay.
Yeah. Weird. All right. So let's just talk about like foundationally.
Okay.
In the 90s, sex ed curriculums were based on abstinence. You only preached as a teacher that you're not supposed to have sex.
That was the bottom line.
And like, yeah,
it's the only thing that's foolproof.
the overall message, right, was don't do it.
Yeah.
And that was similar to the message we were getting at home,
Yeah.
which I think was, I mean, I think it's a good message for kids up to a certain point, but then you have to be realistic.
I think it's completely unrealistic. Odds are your kid's going to have sex before
Right.
they're married or anything like that. Like, especially as a teenager.
And I think so the evolution of abstinence being the primary source of what they're trying to deliver for the messaging to kids in school was abstinence in the 90s. And when you research the curriculums today, that is still what they are preaching.
Really?
Abstinence. So
I think that's unrealistic.
I agree. And I think it's like you were saying, it's not realistic. It's problematic because I don't think you're preparing them for what's reality. I mean, like you said, chances are by the time they're 15, 16, 17, they're going to start experimenting in some way, shape, or form with sexual activity. And I don't know that they're getting that information through the schools with enough information at that up until that point in time in their life to make smart decisions.
I think the approach needs to be, listen, the only thing that's foolproof is to not have sex at all. Like, you're not going to get
So that
pregnant.
is
You're not
what-
going to catch an STD.
It is.
Like, however,
Yeah.
should you
Right.
decide that you're going to have sex, this is what you need to know.
Yeah.
I mean, things like birth control, like not just a condom. Like,
Right.
nobody told us about birth control pills.
No.
Nobody, I mean, at the time, were there IUDs?
No.
Like, but nobody told you about
No.
things like that.
Yeah.
I think, I think
so
she
there's a
did
big-
talk about a diaphragm.
There's a
And I was
big
like, who the hell
evolution.
uses a fucking diaphragm?
There's a big evolution too in birth control since the 90s, which
Yeah.
I think is a huge thing that that they're teaching kids today. But okay, so abstinence was the primary thing. When we were kids, you got taught sex education starting in 5th grade through high school.
Yes.
And you were split up for your like initial class by boys and girls.
Yes.
And you were first taught female anatomy, at least for us.
Yep.
We were taught female anatomy. You learned about all your parts. And from there, it evolved to like your period and what to expect.
They did show us in 5th grade the male anatomy,
Okay.
at least for me.
Yeah.
But it was like very quick. And it
Right.
was like a picture of like a penis, but like a medical picture where like, you know, like
Yeah, like
they
a
have,
diagram.
like all yeah, it's
The
showing
vas
like that's where the
deferens and all the-
testes
yeah,
are and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But,
Yes.
and it was like,
it was kind of like for the girls, I felt like they went into more detail about you and your own body, and they taught you briefly like about the boys, but then they kind of like brushed over it a bit, right? And then after the girls,
and there was a video.
yeah. And then after the girls and boys were split, that's when you got into, and you like came together. That's when you got into more of like the sexual stuff of like what happened. So like it's like the girls know about their body and how it works. The boys know about their body and how it works. They were taught that separately. Now you're older, we bring you together and we're going to start teaching you about sex.
Yeah, you're talking about middle school.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
is like as you get a little older, right?
Right.
7th grade, 8th grade, right?
yep.
At that point, that's where they're teaching you about like STDs and stuff. And I remember sitting in the classroom and that like listening to like these teachers who were like the gym teachers who I thought were like the cool teachers.
I know,
'cause
me
they were
too.
like who we played soccer for and like sports.
Until you're dismissed for like
and
sexual
they're
harassment.
like your
but okay.
friend's dad. Like it's weird.
Yeah, that,
you know.
Oh, I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that. Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, the one thing that stood out to me in middle school from sex ed was when they showed us a video of a woman having a baby.
Oh, so I was gonna get into that. It's on my like list of things. I feel like
God.
that was like one of the last things that we got taught though.
Please don't show that to people. All right, it's wrong. I feel like they should not have shown that to us. I thought this one was gonna rip in two. It was devastating. I hated watching it. It was probably part of one of the reasons that I never wanted to have
I think
children.
it was high school that we saw that.
I saw it in middle school. I remember it. I remember the classroom I was in. Honestly, I think if you probably saw my face at the time, I was like, like literally.
I know
it
like
scared
a lot,
the shit out of me.
A lot of the video, I like kind of like sat with my head down and my eyes closed because I was like, I don't know that I want to watch this. And it's like 90s, like hairy bush
yes!
pregnancy. Like,
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
It was not. And like, it wasn't what I expected. Like, I don't know. Like, I just pictured that they were just going to like pick this little baby up, like, and it was like sitting there. No, I realized like that was all like her stretching and swelling. And then this like watermelon out
yeah.
of her body.
With
and
hair.
I was like,
it had dark hair. That was, oh my God.
yeah, it
Ugh,
was
that so
traumatizing.
nasty.
Traumatizing.
By the way, when I was an adult, I watched a video of a C-section, a home video.
Okay.
It was Matt's and Ashley's.
Okay.
Our cousin. I don't know. It was after they had their first baby. And she had the C-section. And we went over to the house to see the baby, me and Dad. And Matt's like, oh, I got it all on camera. And I'm like, oh, God. Okay. So I want to see it. So we're watching it. Oh, my God. The doctor was like over her belly, like pumping this kid out. I was like, what is happening? This looks violent. I don't like it. Are you sure it's supposed to happen like that? I had no idea. I just figured they cut you open, they take your parts out,
Right.
they take out the.
No. Oh yeah, no. There's all like stretching and prodding and digging. It's
It was
not pleasant.
it was pumping.
Yeah.
It was
Pumping.
violently
They
pumping.
pull like vacuums out still to suck the kid out. Like,
He had his full body weight like pressing on her stomach with like his arm. Like
Poor
that.
Ashley.
I was like, holy shit.
yeah.
Never show me that again. I don't know why you recorded that. I don't know if you're ever going to watch it again, but I don't think it's worth saving. I don't know. That's just me. That's just me.
Okay, so before we saw the pregnancy video, though, they do go through like the whole thing about sex and condoms and STDs, and they like teach you all about that. And I'll never forget, and this is why I called Lindsay's story the health class horror story, is like while they're teaching you about pregnancy, I'll never forget the high school like health teacher telling me it only takes one time and for like all of this to happen and you can get pregnant. And I'm thinking like, as she's like, yeah, right.
Like, what are the odds?
Right. Like, no way. It's not going to happen.
Well,
It does.
it can.
Okay, so difference today, still preaching abstinence, but New Jersey's curriculum starts sexual education where we started in 5th grade. They start now in 1st grade.
Yeah, that's a problem.
1st grade.
My kid's going to be in 1st grade next year.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. Did your kids learn in 1st grade?
They must have, because I do remember them coming home like with material. And I remember like this being like a thing that was discussed through the town, because I think federally they changed a lot of the sex education requirements just because of how the world has evolved over the last 20 years. And I think the state then had to add in new things based on the federal regulations. And so a lot of the parents were up in arms. So I was sort of paying attention to like, what are they teaching them? And I remember reviewing some of the material at the time that like this was all going on when my kids were younger, and looking at it and being like, it's not really anything like crazy.
What was it? Like, what could you possibly be teaching to a kid in 1st grade
So,
about sex?
Again, I think it's not necessarily like sexual intercourse or sexual activity. It was more anatomy things like boys and girls, body parts are different and stuff. They're just teaching you that at a younger age now, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing.
I don't think it's necessary.
I mean, quite frankly, I feel like that sort of stuff should be taught at home.
I think that's on the parents. Let the parents do that. I don't want a teacher
I think
teaching my 1st grader about anything like that.
I think the
Leave that to
problem
me.
is what you're teaching your kid and what I'm teaching my kid might be completely different from what someone else
But
is
you're the
teaching their kid.
parents. But you're the parents. You decide how you want to teach your kid or talk to your kid about something like that.
I know, but then does it cause confusion? Like if little Jimmy's coming in and his mom's teaching him that there's like 7 different genders and you're only teaching your kid that there's a boy and a girl, are
didn't think
the
about that.
kids like, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, if my kid comes home and asks me how many genders there are, I'm going to just tell her 2.
Right.
And anybody
So,
who tells you otherwise
again,
is confused.
So this is something now that has been added to the curriculums in New Jersey, is they teach them younger about different genders.
You mean the 2 genders?
No. Not
I'm not
according to the
doing
state of
that.
New Jersey.
I'm not doing that. I don't give a shit. I'm not doing that.
I'm just telling you. So what also is
pull her.
available is an opt-out.
yeah.
So you can actually
I'll
remove
pull
your
her.
children, because so much of this stuff is so confrontational or
It's not
whatever.
about it being confrontational. It's about her being in 1st grade.
I know.
And first of all, she cannot wrap her head around anything like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no reason to be introducing something like that to a little kid. Don't talk to them about those things. They're not mentally developed to understand what the fuck you're talking
Right.
about. Leave her alone.
Yeah, no, listen, I agree with you. I think that the opt-out option is a good thing. I know that they are like I said, still preaching about abstinence, but I think the way that they're doing it now is more, at least from what I've researched, it's more about the risks of the levels of different types of birth control that are available now. And there
Okay.
are way more today than there were when we were kids. And so they're teaching the efficacy of those methods of birth control so that the kids understand abstinence is 100% effective, but a condom is whatever percent, and birth control pills are this percent, and an IUD is that, and the shot and the patch and the whatever, like, because there's so
that
many,
makes sense.
like, even when we were in high school, I think, like, they just started coming out with, or even after maybe we graduated high school, things like the birth control patch, the ring, the shot.
There was none of that for me.
Not
They
when we were in school. They
When I
didn't
was
teach
in high
about it.
school, all they talked about was condoms, and I vaguely remember her discussing a diaphragm
Yep.
and demonstrating how a diaphragm, not like
And in my mind,
herself.
like, a diaphragm is so 1960s. Like, who the frick
when
still
she pulled
uses a
this thing
diaphragm?
out and was like putting like the shit in it or
Yeah.
whatever. What is that? Whatever.
It's probably like a spermicide. Yeah.
So she was putting that in it and then like bent it and was like, and you put it up. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm not doing that. Like, who the hell does that?
I know.
I know somebody who's much older than me, that she was telling me that she used a diaphragm like her whole life.
Right.
And I was like, that's disgusting. Like, I don't understand what would make it. Here's the thing about it too. Like, if you're in the moment, you're like, excuse me, I gotta go lube up my cup. And like, I'll be right back.
Or
like,
or
way to break the mood.
or do you put it in like before your date?
We're like, maybe I'm gonna get lucky.
I don't know how it works.
I don't know.
It seems like such an outdated method of.
I would not.
I
That's
can't
not for me.
imagine many people are using diaphragms at this point in life.
No, I think it's a boomer thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's so gross.
Ew.
Yeah. Okay, so then another thing that they're teaching today that they didn't teach us, and I'm kind of glad that they didn't teach us, because I don't care like if I was in 5th grade when all this shit started, or in 12th grade when I was a senior in high school and like 18 years old. They are teaching about LGBTQ sex. And
Okay.
to each his own. You do you.
Yep.
But for me, I was in no way mature enough, even at 18 years old, to handle that conversation.
Absolutely not. I completely agree. 100%.
Like, I couldn't do it.
No, I couldn't see that being taught in high school for us with enough, like, with the kids, like the actual students being able to take it seriously.
So, okay, so here's the question then. Knowing now that they're teaching this sort of stuff, which I think is good, are there things that you wish that they would have taught us back then that they didn't?
Do I wish there were things that we would have taught us back then that they didn't?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like what?
Other forms of birth control.
Yeah.
They definitely didn't talk. We had the pill. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't talk about that. They
Okay.
didn't talk about that at all. Like, I ended up going on the pill and it was a nightmare, but it was not because I learned about it from school.
So that's a really valid point. There's so many different types of birth controls and how different hormones affect
Yeah.
different women differently.
Yeah.
That would have been a really good thing to know.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you start with this one and it's not good for you, maybe it has too much estrogen or whatever, or there are options that are non-hormonal or
Right.
whatever. Like, I know all this stuff now as an adult and having worked in pharma and women's health for
Yeah.
so many years, right? Like, there's so many options out there for people, but that was never discussed. So, like, I don't feel like I was smart enough to even make the right choice of birth control for myself at that period of time had I wanted to. Thank God there was Planned Parenthood and places like that, because that's where I went.
Yeah.
You know, when I
Same.
was 16 and trying to be smart.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had to trust the doctor, where now as an adult and being as educated as I am in this space, I wish I knew this stuff. And I feel like they could have taught so much more.
I think
than
so
they
too.
did.
And I also think that their delivery for a lot of like the way it was taught was not great, in my opinion. And I say that because I remember, again, the Bergen being like, listen, you get STDs, they never go away. That's it. You have it for the rest of your life. Love me, love my herpes. And I was like, what? Oh my God. Like, literally, that's what she said. Love me, love my herpes. And I was like, ugh. Like, don't try to scare people out of, or
Right.
kids out of not having sex. Don't do it that way.
Well, and another thing too, like, that I really wish that they would have taught is more about like, and I think a lot of this is in the curriculums today, because I will tell you, in 2018, they added information to the laws like that govern our curriculum or whatever, the rules of things that have to be in there.
Okay.
About sexting, which was not an issue when we were in high school because we didn't even really have cell phones back then. And if you did, they weren't like anything like they are today.
The pixels were so bad.
They were so pixelated. You're like, is that a foot or a boob? Like,
actually,
I have no idea.
You know what? When I was probably 19 or 20, I did have a phone with a camera.
Okay. Yeah. But
And I remember Mark went through it one time. There was a picture of my boobs in it.
oh my God.
And he was like, well, I don't want to say he was swiping because we didn't have swiping. He was pressing, you know?
Yes.
And he was going through and he's looking at my pictures and he's like, oh my God. And he saw my boobs. And I was like, Mark, don't go through somebody's phone. Like, don't go through their pictures. I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, we did. I mean,
Okay.
now it's probably like,
Well, it's a huge deal, right?
now it's a lot worse now.
So sexting is another thing they added. And then in 2019, they added consent, which I think that's great because I don't think that is something
That was not taught.
never was
No.
talked about.
No.
And I think they did teach you about like being inappropriately touched and stuff, like more about molestation and things like that, but not about sexual consent with like a partner or someone that like you might think you might want to sleep with, or and then in the moment you decide you don't want to, and you can be like, hey, no, like
It's okay to change your mind.
that was not
No.
ever addressed.
You know, it's another thing that they never talked about, and I don't know if it was necessarily a thing back then, but the date rape drugs. Like,
Yeah.
and worrying about stuff like that is something you
Yeah.
absolutely have to worry about today.
Yes.
I don't know if that's part of their curriculum or whatever, but yeah, like I would definitely stress on like never don't leave your drink alone.
Yeah.
Or, you know,
Yeah,
be mindful about things like that because
Yeah.
somebody can slip something in your drink and you can wake up in 24 hours bleeding and having no
Well, and
idea what the fuck
especially
happened
like
to
I
you.
mean, it gets much deeper than like sex ed, but if you think about like trafficking and all that shit, like
Oh yeah,
you know, like
trafficking. I didn't even think about
That-
trafficking.
it's like yeah, I don't know. That's a whole nother
Yeah, I guess so.
diversion, I think. Like we could go down a different path there. So something else that was added in 2019 is infant safe havens and teaching high school kids that they can, if they are pregnant, that they can bring the baby to a safe haven, which is like a firehouse, and
Yeah.
that there's like no consequence if you want to just abandon your kid, which I guess is better than them like tossing them in dumpsters like they were doing in the 90s or shitting them out in
Yeah.
toilets and just fucking leaving at prom, which those were like the news headlines when we were young.
Yeah, that was fucked up. I remember there was a show I didn't know I was pregnant. And I'm like,
Yes.
you're on this show giving birth in a toilet. What do
Yes.
you mean you didn't know you were pregnant? How'd these cameras get here?
Yeah.
It made no sense.
I didn't even.
Not
I think
a-
they were like reenactments of a real thing.
No, it wasn't. It was like a reality show. I swear to God. I swear to God.
That doesn't even
She's
make
like, oh, I
sense.
didn't know. Like, really? You didn't know? Why is there an entire camera crew in your bathroom with you as you're shitting out a child? Make it make sense. Do the math. You knew.
Good God.
What do you mean you didn't know you didn't have your period for 9 months?
Right.
What are you talking about?
I know. Well, some people get it, like, and they don't even know they're pregnant.
Well, Lindsay swears that she didn't know because she got her period, and I just don't believe that.
I don't know.
I don't
I never
think so.
know.
I don't.
The other thing too, which kind of goes back to the cell phones, but they added this. So sexting was the thing they added in 2018, but in 2019 they added like sexually explicit images and how sending them back and forth is like not okay. And
That's
that it's
important.
considered pornography
Oh,
in certain
it's-
situations.
it can be illegal.
Yeah.
Like child pornography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially to like, you know, you were saying like a picture of your boobs on your cell phone. So like a kid today has that, sends it to a boy. He sends it to his friend sends it to somebody else. And now this girl's tits are all over the
yeah,
school and
online.
she's getting abused and online and like bullied or whatever. Like it spirals.
Yeah.
And that was not something that existed when we were kids.
I think part of the consent thing too is like just taking a page out of Tom Sandoval's book. Like, don't record someone doing something if they're unaware that you're recording them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like creeps like videoing. Mm-hmm. Oh God.
Yeah. Like, nothing is safe on a phone.
Yeah.
You need to know that.
No.
Just if it's on a phone, it can be all over the internet. Do they talk about masturbation?
No. So that's actually, I was going to ask you, do you remember them talking about, I feel like when we were kids, they talked about like different kinds of sex, but like they blew over it really quick. So it was like, there's, oral sex and vaginal sex and anal sex and masturbation. And it was like, and that's it. Like, that's all they told you. There was no like detail behind it or
I don't
anything.
remember ever touching, no pun intended, touching on masturbation and sex ed. I really don't. I don't remember them ever bringing that up. If
But
they
don't
did,
you think like that's something that they should be bringing up, especially in
I do.
like middle school, high school for the boys particularly,
yeah.
because
there's crusty socks everywhere.
they're touching
Like,
it
you
all
have
the
to-
time.
Exactly.
Like, this is a normal thing that happens with kids,
I completely agree with you on
and
that.
I feel like if you don't talk about it, but then again, I guess you don't want to like be encouraging them to be like playing
home
with
and
their
jerk
willy
off.
all day. Yeah, like, how do you? I don't know.
Well, I mean,
And like, is that what you want to learn from your health teacher, or is that something like your dad should be talking to you about?
I think it should be touched on. And I hate saying touched on, but that's like, I can't help it. I can't.
The worst words.
It. I'm sorry. I think it's something that should be discussed on some level, just to explain like what it is,
Right.
And that it's like a normal thing, but there's unhealthy levels of it,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Maybe in that approach,
And that's the other thing too that I think is, and I didn't even have this on my like list of comparisons, but like in the 90s, the access to porn was like
that's what I was gonna say.
wet magazines you found in the woods in like
the
a fort,
woods.
right? Like
Your husband.
that was me. That's what I found. I found like,
Oh, across the street.
yeah, I found stuff in the woods, and like they were like wet, soggy Playboys, and you'd like look through them, but like
You're right. It was magazines, though. It wasn't.
it wasn't on like
No.
like all online how it is today. Like it's so
No.
accessible today.
Can I just tell you, by the way, I was watching Home Alone with Mila for the first time.
I don't know what this has to do with porn, but
Well, when the family leaves
oh yeah,
and he goes into Buzz's room
And he
he's
finds the magazine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I saw it coming up. I'm like, Mila, look at mommy. Look at me. Real quick. Just look at me. Real quick. Just real
What's
fast.
that?
Real fast.
oh my god,
She's like, what? Nothing. God, it's okay. You can get back to it. Buzz's girlfriend. Woof.
Oh, poor
Anyway.
Mila.
Yeah, but not the point. The access to porn is absolutely
Right.
insane. So again, like when when I say about talking about masturbation, that it's a normal thing for people to do.
Sure.
But there's like unhealthy levels of it. Same thing with, I think,
Porn.
Porn. Yeah.
Right.
You have to be concerned about
Well, and they kind of
somebody
go
going home every day and
hand in
rubbing one out.
hand, right? So like,
Every day. Did you say? Jess is like, ah.
hand in hand.
Here comes the money
the
shot.
innuendos just keep flowing. They just keep flowing. I'm not doing it on purpose, I promise.
Oh my God.
But yeah, like they never talked about any of that stuff.
No,
And like these are things that I think kids need to know about.
it does need to be talked about.
Right.
I think it needs to be talked about on a what's excess
Right.
level.
Right.
I mean, you could have some people who are like, do not watch porn for
Well, and I
XYZ
feel like
reasons, but
Not addressing it too creates like an element of
curiosity.
curiosity. Right. And then and that's the issue here in totality, where it's like you're giving bits and pieces of information to these kids, and now they can go and basically figure it out like themselves online and see anything and everything that they want to learn about. They
Yeah.
can literally YouTube a video and
Yeah.
and find out about this stuff. So it's like, are we trusting our educators to teach them enough to make them smart and to make good decisions? Are we focusing on the topics that are truly important? Like, I don't remember a time where, especially even as like a kid getting your period, learning the difference between a pad and a tampon.
they sent us home with this
And
like
you got
period pack
and you got OB tampons that you had to put in with your
with
finger.
no applicator.
Right.
Which
Why?
is why? Why would you give that to anybody?
So this is what I'm saying.
They
like,
didn't display how to like
this would
show
have
an
been
example.
useful information.
But they didn't show like how the tampons worked. I learned how a tampon works from my friend's older sister.
Yeah.
Literally, she showed me like in a sink. Like
Yeah, how
took
it
it
opens
out,
up,
how it
you
opens.
push it. Yep, I know.
Nobody, they just sent you home with them.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I know personally of like people that I went to school with that did not use those things the right way and found out the hard way.
Yeah.
Like, because there was no discussion about it.
I know.
Don't send kids home with freaking no applicator tampons and not even tell them what you're supposed to do with it.
I know.
So stupid.
Right. So like, I don't know. I still like feel like there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're talking about some things that they didn't talk about.
Did they talk about transgenders
Yeah.
in sex ed? That's part of the curriculum?
I'm imagining it's part of the different genders because they cover different genders.
Oh, God.
So I don't know what that consists of specifically or how it's delivered to the kids, but yeah, there's a lot. So yeah,
Ugh. Sorry, that's frustrating as fuck.
I know.
We're going to opt out of that one.
I mean, listen, it's good that they're doing more, but they can still do better.
They can do better.
And I think the problem is funding. And I think there's certain topics that could be addressed too based on like geographical areas. Like I feel like maybe you need to teach certain things based on where people live and things like that. You know what I mean? More so than like other kids. Like I feel like you get these kids that are hillbillies in the woods that are like skiing in Vernon, New Jersey. Like don't take your dick out on the ski lift.
You have to
and
tell
take
kids
photos of it, right? And like send it to girls. But like,
Oh, my God.
but maybe like in other places like cities or stuff, it's like, you know, don't leave your baby in the dumpster. Like, you can take it to the firehouse, right? Like,
What
I
kind
don't
of
know.
world do we live in?
I don't know. Certain problems and certain topics, I think, are more important to be enforced in geographical locations just based on.
Yeah, like soaking counts.
Yeah, right. Like, but do our kids need to learn about soaking? No.
No.
Should they be teaching that
No.
in Utah health class?
Probably. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So
probably.
this is what I'm saying. Like, there's things that apply
I
more
wonder,
or
like,
less based on geographical areas.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I think you're right. Is there anything else?
No, I mean that's it. I mean, it's basically the curriculum has changed. It's evolved. They're teaching much younger than they used to be. They are really giving a lot of information about different genders, different types of sex than what they just taught us, which was heterosexual sex.
I wonder if they talk about vaccines.
Yeah, like Gardasil and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
That's a good question.
I didn't see anything, but yeah, like we have evolved so much in the 20 years since we learned about this stuff as kids. I would expect that the education systems would have moved along with the evolution of medical progression, and I see some progress, but it seems to me to be more social issues than true medical information that could truly benefit these kids.
Yeah, let's just stick to the medical.
So if you're a teacher, I would love your input.
Yeah.
And for other parents too, what do you guys think? Are they teaching our kids too much? Are they learning things too young? Do you think it's good that we're evolving? I mean, I think it's both good and bad, but I'd be interested to hear your comments.
I wonder if like a teacher is supposed to be the one who really talks about porn, or if that's supposed to come from your parents.
Right. These are the debatable
I don't know. I don't
things.
think I'd want my
Same
kid's
with, like,
teacher talking about porn now that
masturbation.
I'm thinking about it.
I don't know if I want my kid's teacher teaching him about how to.
Well, I mean, you don't have to teach him how to do it. What would be the best approach on that? Like, what is the best approach? Be like, listen,
Health teachers, please weigh in.
just so you know,
we need help.
if you're feeling a certain way, you can do it yourself. Like, I don't know. How do you?
But if you're teaching masturbation, okay, I think we took that totally like the boy route because they're gross and make messes that their moms have to clean up. But like from a girl's perspective, do you want a health ed teacher telling your daughter that she can buy a vibrator? Or would
No.
you rather be the one?
I'd
to-
rather be the one.
Right. So like, where do you draw the line? I don't know.
I don't know. That is kind of weird.
And at what point does it become cringy and creepy? Like, are we educating them too much?
I don't know. Maybe they should just stick to the basics.
Yeah.
Like only what's necessary.
It's tough. I think again, my philosophy personally is that you continue to approach it as medical as possible and that you follow the guidances of like the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
Because they have tiers of birth control efficacy, and that's what the pharmaceutical companies are dependent on in presenting their data to the world when
Yeah,
they're
that makes
marketing these
sense.
products. So that's what we should be teaching the kids.
I agree. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah. All right.
All right. I think that's good. I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty good combo to have.
I think so.
I'm going to be on the lookout now for first grade.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like nervous about this.
It's not that bad. I think it's pretty basic,
I
but
don't care. Don't talk to my kid about it. She's been going in first grade.
they're not going
Leave
to talk to her about
alone.
like porn or anything. I'm sure you're fine.
Really? Really? God. Let's hope not.
All right.
All right. That's a good way to stop it. We could stop there. All right. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye.